I always want to do a kind of Robert Wilson here, in terms of impact, because he's a great avant-garde stage director. He often looks into the auditorium for at least 10-15 minutes, and it's a fantastic impact that he has, but I'm not Robert Wilson. Or as T.S. Eliot says, and was never meant to be. The concept of cruelty, try doing this here. This is cruel. But it's been something I've been fascinated in terms of a practitioner, an educationalist, for possibly near 25 years. On a personal level, I can't ever remember being taught Arto. But I suspect somebody like me, when I was a schoolmaster initially, at Key Stage 5, looked at Stanislavski, Brecht. No, not for me. And there seemed to have been some kind of tagline with Arto that really infused me and has had a huge impact on me as a lecturer, teacher, and as a director. What I hope this will offer, and I think the performance is more than what I'm going to talk about, will be twofold. It's a reflective practice in terms of what did Arto mean by cruelty, his concept, his notion, its genesis, its development, and its subsequent framing. And then to give you a reconstruction of Arto's own doctrine as a prerequisite for a practice as research. I'm fascinated in the sense that Arto tells us not to do stuff in theatre, but not tells us what to do. So when we apply that to his own work, you will see, I think, an outcome. I don't want to talk too much about Arto the man, but he's as fascinating as his philosophical discourses, I suppose. But to contextualise it, born in 1896, his childhood was characterised by a succession of psychophysical illnesses, nervous disorders. He suffered serious bouts of depression, which coupled with an ever-increasing drug habit, led to manifestations in psychotic behaviour and eventually long-term incarceration in psychiatric hospitals. Sounds like my life. In 1924, he joined the Surrealist movement, but his continuing career as a film actor, the dubiously bourgeois sources of sponsorship for his theatrical activities, and the Surrealist embrace of Marxist politics signalled an early end to Arto's affiliation with Surrealists, and subsequently became expelled from the movement in 1926. And I think, if anything, that sums Arto up. To get expelled from the Surrealist movement at that time is extraordinary. But at that pivotal moment, he went on to direct at the Alfred Jarry Theatre Company, and astonishingly, and quite often I think forgotten, produced 7 plays over 8 evenings, spread over 2 years in 3 different theatres. And a year later, after several scenarios production plans, he abandoned theatre altogether and developed a series of philosophical discourses on theatre and life. What I want to try and do before you see the performance is just inform you a little bit about what Arto said was about cruelty. In teaching of it, I think Peter Brook did us a great disservice. He robbed the Theatre of Cruelty season in 1964. He took that title. And then what we had, apart from the glorious introduction to Arto, was lunatics, white faces, straitjackets, in terms of his seminal work, The Marossard. And I think that filtered through education for a very long time. It certainly affected me. But it was more Brechtian. Peter Brook said to apply Artaud is to betray him. He never employed any of Artaud's doctrine, methods, techniques whatsoever. And I think through what Artaud says, what I want to kind of talk about before the performance, you will see the contradictions that happen there. So my paper was concerned primarily with the analysis of Antonin Artaud's ideas on cruelty in theatre rather than on the literary style he assumes to express them. As Aeneas Nin, 1903 to 1977, journalist and friend to Artaud, asserts in her journals, to focus on the latter would be contrary to the man's contempt for literature in live theatre. Artaud was arguably a theatrical and culturally revolutionary. He threatened established and state-sanctioned moral, shared and spiritual values. Theatre, as Artaud conceived it, is a living force shaped on the stage at any given cultural and historical instance in time and space. Its unrestrained powers extend beyond cogent thought and thus, like Artaud himself, have a potentially subversive quality, which might be perilous, maybe destructive. But for Artaud, theatre was live, ingenious. It could not be repeated, packaged and sold as a capitalist commodity without losing its effectiveness. For Artaud, theatre processes our survival, presenting inexplicable and communicating on a fundamental subconscious level. Artaud's concept of cruelty in theatre embraced a desire for theatrical cruelty to move into a social arena as well. So cruelty, despite its violently destructive connotations, was for Artaud a highly creative double for his theatre of the future. And interestingly, Artaud never specified the exact meaning of the double, a key concept in his dramatic theory, beyond defending it somewhat enigmatically as a great agent of whom the theatre in its forms is only the figuration until it becomes transfiguration. I still am fascinated by what Artaud means by cruelty. And many of us here, I think, would be forgiven for thinking automatically of possibly wanton or unwarranted acts of violence. Some critics have even gone so far as to include sadism among the connotations of Artaud's chosen analogy for theatre. But one thing I did try, and I think I discovered, that Artaud pulled no punches with his portrayal of the effects of the plague, for example, during which time all social order and beliefs of morality break down, and a primordial survival instinct then takes over. Thus, it has been inferred that Artaud's intended meaning behind the metaphor of cruelty is an abstract noun for certified types of human violent action. But sadistic and bloody exploits are not what I argue, both here and in performance, of what Artaud advocated at all. The Theatre in its Double, published in 1938, is of a huge impact. It contains letters, manifestos, revised public versions of lectures written during the period of 1931 to 1936. It signals, and some commentators would say, validates the lack of Artaud's practical theatre work. What it does do is wrestle with the absurdities of life and the greater metaphysical and philosophical truths which no amount of practical involvement in theatre could ever reveal to Artaud. So the theatre in its double, then, is as much of a testing of human life as it is of the theatre. Its main purpose to set out a new concept of theatre practice, largely infused by the philosophies, the religions, and the theatres of traditional societies, geographically located in the east. I'm going to go to the conclusion of my sort of literary review, because I think that will preface the performance. Cruelty, I suggest, must be measured from a philosophical and metaphysical point of view. Artaud's idea of a metaphysical theatre, strangely enough, springs from his conviction that it's abstract, discursive thinking which cuts man off from the hidden, mysterious source of his being and confines him into a contracted, mundane world. So to re-establish contact with the true metaphysical basis of human existence, it's the body which must be reawakened and made active. In Artaud's words, I was going to try and do a French accent. In fact, I did this morning, and it was like, hello, hello, sort of gone horribly wrong. To reach the metaphysical sphere, we have to become more physical. So in Artaud's theatre, the cosmic forces made manifest through physical means can reach and touch the submerged physical, non-verbal and subconscious energies of the masses. Hence Artaud's principal concept of the theatre of cruelty. I use the word cruelty in the sense of hungering after life, cosmic strictness, relentless necessity, in the Gnostic sense of living vortex engulfing darkness, in the inescapable necessary pain which life could not continue. The performance, I think, has been an extraordinary process for me as a director, and it comes about from Artaud's first skeletal sketch, Le Jet de Sang, which is called The Spurt of Blood. It's no longer than an A4 piece of paper. It's written primarily for 8 characters. Women do not do fairly in Artaud's world. But I wanted to use it by imposing on a performer what Artaud said about his own theory. So what you will witness, I hope, is that. Perhaps looking back on it, probably 25, 26 years ago when I was a schoolmaster, what really attracted me and had the impact on me was Artaud's line. The purpose of theatre is not to define thought, it's to provoke it.
5 minutes, but I'm not going to push for questions because I appreciate people may just want to silently reflect, but we do have 5 minutes. You don't mind if we silently reflect, Mike, do you?
Not at all.
People may want to ask something.
Like, can I sort of have that before without the live music?
Yeah.
So tell us for you how that was, in the decision making for having the live musicians and for you seeing it in performance, how that.
I mean, I thought that was my idea of theatre, really. We worked with a CD player. It's not a performance yet. It's very much work in progress. And what subsequently happened since the three came in was the idea, the spurt of blood, was Martin's line from the auditorium, and then the rape of the musicians to having that connection then with Claire. So there was a subsequent development from that. I love working with live musicians, but economically that's a tough thing to do. And you've just enhanced, enhanced for me what I think Claire and I kind of created, really. I mean, I thought the whole thing was extraordinary, but that's from my perspective. I can't thank you three enough. I mean, it was great. But Claire, what a performer! You know, I mean, vocally, physically, you know, to engage in that kind of work for half an hour is an extraordinary accomplishment.
Yeah, I love the empathy. She really delivered that. I was really feeling for her character. I was under your direction, but I saw many painting images in your movement. I was wondering if you based it on
Well, Arto talks a lot about paintings as being the sort of double. And, you know, first of all, you've got to look at the text becomes subservient. And I think the musicians, therefore, for me, allowed that, really. And if you look at the skeletal kind of Legette de Saint, here's the contradiction. He uses so many words, and yet he denounces words in theatre. So what I'm trying to do is impose that on this particular piece. But visual, for me, is always been, and will continue to be, primarily what I'm about rather than text. Because I think it's about you taking ownership of that in theatre. There's no right or wrong. I don't want people to come out of that and go, there was a start, there was a middle, there was an end. I'm not into that. That's why I didn't teach Stanislavski. I think the ownership is with you. Can I ask you, what did you feel through that?
It was cruel.
Cruel?
Yeah.
Why?
Makes you think about the cruelty of love.
Love,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cruel. Oh, sorry. You said
No.
that. No,
This is how cruel love is.
Mm.
Okay.
As I say, I don't think it's about sadism. I don't think it's about, you know, self-harm, mutilation with Arto. But we've been led to believe that by critics and commentators. And I think it goes back to a very early conversation I had with Jen, really, years ago. It was about the alignment of cruelty and beauty. I think beauty is very cruel. And there are moments where I had to look away from that or turn my ear away from that because it was really beautiful. And in a way, it's extraordinarily cruel. So that's what I was kind of looking at.
So when Claire first came on, for me there was no history to it, so I can't imagine, and obviously I don't know answer the question, but I can't imagine in the workshops that you sort of worked on the idea of her having a history or the organ she was playing or one of the many characters. She was trying to portray what she knew of that person before. And it was almost like she was a blank canvas, and although her face at first seemed almost like a mask, to me she wasn't portraying what that mask said. It was either a blank canvas or there was many things and many words, and I've never seen a body and a face portray so many different things, but nothing at the same time. It's really kind of...
Cruelty comes to mean freedom from representation, and one thing I talked about with Claire was about, you know, Arto would say, only the truth of a reality, the visceral pain of indisputable experience, not the pretense of its enactment. And I suppose that goes back to what Jenny was talking about in Cultivating Research when we first performed it. I don't want it ever to be the same. It can't be. You know, but I was talking to Claire about, are you in character? Do you feel a character here? And she said, no, I don't. I'm completely here and now. And that's been a wonderful, liberating experience between both of us, I think, for me to experience that. But obviously my job is to make sure I think it's theatrically viable. Because this kind of work can become self-indulgent, and it can become embarrassing so. And I think there's just a really fine line with the performer. And performance artists at the moment are using a lot of Artodian stuff, but with this self-mutilation and all of that stuff. But I think for me, in terms of theatre, what is viable, what makes it effective?
Can I just ask Claire?
Yeah.
Did you see them as separate parts that were divorced from each other, or was it like one whole sort of
I think I kind of saw it as a series of like, you know, photo frames with like an idea in them, and I kind of experimented in that sort of like photo frame of a moment, and I think they were do you know, when I was doing it, there's no kind of structure in my head. I'm kind of just, sounds really pretentious, but just there and present and just kind of like doing what feels right within a certain photo frame, within a certain idea, and that. So I didn't think of it in concrete terms of whether they linked. I was just doing what was there, and just kind of there wasn't any cognitive thought behind what I was doing. I was just kind of just going with it, really.
So did you allow one mode of behaviour, so to speak, influence the energy of the one that was about to follow?
No, I tried to transition between there was kind of like a transition period, and then I kind of I had a separate ideas, separate photo frames, and each one probably was linked to each other in a certain way, and I guess that they were physically there was a link, because at a point I was the bit where I fall on the floor, at that point I just feel mentally exhausted. So that obviously carries on onto the next page, but I try to think of them as self-contained units as a whole.
And character, there is actually a script, of course, isn't there? Because there's the music.
Yeah.
And so, are you actually saying the same words in each performance? I don't mean today, I mean when you do separate performances of this, are you all saying the same word?
No, I have an idea that informs the sort of the section, if you like, the unit, as Mike calls it, but I kind of improvise around that idea. So, like in the first section is taken from actual lines of Arto's text, but how I use that is kind of just what is working and what my body feels like I'm doing, kind of what the audience is kind of sensing is right.
Spina?
Yeah, one more question. I want to know how the musicians felt like performing.
I don't know, I suppose you have to think about how much connection to have with the performer there, because we don't usually do this sort of thing, or at least I don't. I have to say that for me it's a bit of a new experience.
Mike wanted us to be playing against Claire rather than with. So as far as I was concerned, I felt like I was not playing at Claire or to Claire. I felt like she was something separate, and that we were just kind of giving our performance to you guys.
Yeah. And on the impact, no idea, really.
I was going to say.
How do you measure impact on
I was
that?
going to say the impact on me as an audience member. I felt like there was moments in it when it was like showing like the worst and the best about us as humans, and at points I felt like it was a really liberating piece, and at other points I felt like it was a really oppressive. It's like there's a massive contrast, but in both those contrasts there was like beauty and cruelty contradicting each other, I suppose.
So,
Thank you.
quick one from that. You want to ask?
Oh, the moments.
You're
That's
okay.
fine,
You did over the break. Okay. Great. Well, a day full of impact, and thank you very much for praised impact.